last word on sports. First American Bank's 4th Down on 4.
Well, welcome into 4th Down. The wait is over. Saints and Cardinals next Saturday. But waiting for the players, well, that means healing up. Waiting for the fans, that's been going on for 40 years now. If good things come to those who wait, Houdat's will eventually strike gold. It's small, very small steps have been taken by this franchise when it comes to postseason prominence. Could this year finally be that big leap into immortality?
We're close, and close don't mean and you can put that on TV for me. I'm tired of coming close, and we're going to work our ass off till we ain't close anymore.
It took 30 years for their first winning season, but for fans, the 1987 campaign was well worth it. A 13-3 record, good enough for home field in 2009, 12-3 in the 87 strike-shortened season. Didn't even win the Saints the NFC West as their longtime nemesis. The 49ers went 13-2. San Fran beat the Saints in the Dome on October 25th. It would be the Black and Gold's last regular season loss as they reeled off 9 straight heading into the playoffs. The franchise's first postseason game started with a 7-0 lead over the Vikings before Minnesota outscored the Saints 44-3 after that. 3 years later, the playoffs looked unlikely until the Saints pulled off wins in 3 of their last 4 games. While dodging snowballs from the arms of Bear fans, Houdats watched another playoff disappointment as the Monsters of the Midway won 16-6, perhaps foreshadowing an outcome some 16 years later. 1991 brought New Orleans its first division crown with the help of a 7-0 start, but the Saints dropped 5 of their next 7 after that, likely costing them a first-round bye. Division rival Atlanta came into the Superdome in the wild card round, battling the Saints neck and neck before Michael Haynes broke Houdat hearts with 2 touchdown grabs in the second half. The Dirty Birds won 27-20. The 1992 squad boasted a defense that was arguably as good or better than this year's defense, shutting out the Jets in the final game of the season. But the last of 3 straight playoff appearances would be the most heartbreaking. The Saints were off to a 27 lead over the Philadelphia Eagles midway through the 3rd. But Philly soared for 29 straight as the Saints' offense went cold, sending fans out into another cold winter without a playoff win. The 2000 Saints were the franchise's most unlikely playoff team, as 3 games against the defending Super Bowl champs told the story of the season. Aaron Brooks' coming out party in St. Louis shocked the Rams and the rest of the league and sparked the Black and Gold to their 2nd division title ever. That title locked up before the Rams came to New Orleans in the regular season finale to earn their own trip to the playoffs, resulting in a return trip to the Big Easy. And when it looked like the Saints might blow a 24-point lead at home, karma finally came back around.
Hakeem drops the ball! Hakeem drops the ball! Brian Mills might have fallen at the 10-yard line! You gotta be kidding me! The New Orleans Saints football, Brian Mills, the most unlikely hero of them all! There is a God after all!
Brian Mills' Johnny-on-the-spot play helped the Bless You Boys to the franchise's first ever playoff win. Another mauling in Minnesota, however, followed the next week. The offseason after Katrina provided new leadership and a renewed spirit inside the Superdome, along with another division title and the team's first ever postseason bye week. The Saints stumbled to the finish line that season, losing 2 of their last 3, although with their playoff position already clinched, their season finale against Carolina in the Dome featured more curtain calls than anything else. And the rest would help. As the deuce ran loose in the second half of the divisional game against the Eagles, the Saints were headed to the conference title game for the first time ever. But another season ended in the chilly Chicago evening. So as the Saints limp into the 09 playoffs, losers of their last 3 after a 13-0 start, without a dominant performance since their last night in November, what have we learned? In short, while home field advantage is guaranteed, nothing else is. We welcome into 4th Down Larry Holder of CBSSports.com. He covers the Saints. You know, I remember in 06 we were talking about how important it would be after that Chicago loss that, man, if the Saints could ever get home field, that's what they would need to make that run to the Super Bowl. Well, they have it. Is that home field luster, though, kind of been knocked down a little bit with the losses to Tampa Bay and the loss to Dallas?
I think a little bit, maybe in just opponents' eyes. They see the Saints aren't invincible at home. They've been beaten twice now. Both times were close, but I mean, they were beaten nonetheless. So there's probably a little bit of luster, and teams are going to probably come in and feel like, hey, we've really got a shot in the Super Bowl.
Well, especially a team like Arizona that just last year made that run to the Super Bowl on the road. I think probably health, though, is the most important thing. It was probably more important this year that the Saints were able to get that bye week. And as you look, who do you think benefits a little bit more? Who makes this offense more potent? A healthy Pierre Thomas, because he's going to have that rib issue that I think still going to, that's a tough thing to play with a flak jacket. Or a guy like Jeremy Shockey, who really hasn't been effective the last 3 weeks when the Saints went on that 3-game losing streak.
I think Jeremy Shockey, probably because it opens up maybe the middle of the field more. You have that threat in the middle of the field. It helps out your run game, too. You're not asking David Thomas to do as much, and you'll see less Darnell Dinkins because he's been having to play a lot with Shockey hurt, and he's not really the threat offensively that, let's say, a Jeremy Shockey is.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at, you can't look at Jeremy Shockey's numbers to see his impact. His numbers haven't been, outside of that Detroit game, I believe, and maybe the week after that, they haven't been exciting. But you look, they won every time he was in there. I think for some of the reasons that you said, you've got to pay attention to him, and you can't just put a linebacker or safety on him.
Right. There, like I said, there's a huge difference between a Jeremy Shockey and a Darnell Dinkins in a defensive coordinator's head.
Yeah.
They know Shockey's going to be a threat. It seems like he's ready to go and almost chomping at the bit to play, so I expect there to be a big impact when he returns.
All right, I think I'm going to know your answer here, but biggest impact as we stay on the health front is, all right, losing Charles Grant or a healthy Cedric Ellis back, which will have a bigger impact on the Saints defense?
I think a healthy Cedric Ellis, just because Charles Grant hasn't been the guy you hoped he would be. Cedric Ellis brings at least some sort of run support defense there. I know it's been leaky, even at times when he was in there the last couple of weeks, but I think a healthy Cedric Ellis is definitely the key.
If you look, though, even at that defensive end spot, though, I mean, Bobby McCray's got a bad back. He's not 100% healthy. Jeff Charleston, I mean, you like him. He makes some nice plays, but Charles Grant's better than him. And there's a reason they got rid of Paul Spicer, and there's a reason Paul Spicer is probably still available at this point. So I think you're really Bobby McCray that's not 100%. I think you're downgraded severely at that other defensive end spot right now.
I think so, but there's a reason why Greg Williams threw in the 3-4 defense. I would not be surprised if they started going to that because of the lack of depth at defensive tackle and the lack of depth at defensive end now. And I give Jeff Charleston a little more credit than maybe you do. I think he's a nice player. I think they can maybe help run support a little more, but you're going to need pressure, especially against a guy like Kurt Warner. It can throw his game completely off if you get it.
This offense now hasn't scored a meaningful touchdown since the first quarter of the Tampa Bay game. Can the week help them? This extra, I mean, it's a long time for such a potent offense to be that stagnant. Throw out the Carolina game. But you go 3 full quarters against a horrible Tampa Bay team. You're unable to do anything.
And that's crazy kind of to hear.
Yeah, it really is when you think about it.
Considering how prolific this offense has been, and you have Drew Brees and all the weapons, I think it completely helps them. You know, they watch tape, they did a lot of self-scouting, and they said a lot of that, you kind of heard that a lot through the locker room when we were in there yesterday. I think they right the ship, I really do.
I think they do too, especially now Jabari Greer probably closer to 100%, Tracy Porter, and then Darren Sharp in that backfield. You're seeing that secondary, you're seeing a team that you haven't seen probably since the New England game. Larry Holder, he said that the Cardinals were probably the best matchup for the Saints. Now he gets a chance to back that up. Cardinals and Saints next Saturday. We talk about that matchup next on 4th Down. Arizona today, Kurt.
Because of the health of the defensive backfield, you got Greer back, Porter back, you'll have Sharper back. That makes this defense completely different. I know we've been talking about this probably for weeks now. You get those guys back, Greg Williams can put pressure, throw blitzes at him, and then Kurt Warner, he could throw 5 touchdowns this week. He could throw 5 interceptions against the Saints. You never know. That's why he's shaky. That's why I say it's the best matchup.
I think these last 5 weeks, we forgot how advantageous the defense was in getting turnovers. And then I think you get reminded of how important those turnovers are watching football this weekend. I mean, the Jets were able to force turnovers. The Ravens were able to force turnovers. You saw what Arizona did early in this game. forcing turnovers, which ultimately led them to the win, in overtime. So I think you get a defense that goes back to what they were doing at the start of the season. Maybe you start getting, you take Kurt Warner from being that Hall of Fame guy to the guy who, was a journeyman for a while there as well. Your boy Early Doucette shows up. Is he going to have another big game in the Dome, though?
He might. This is really a breakout moment for him. He's going to be kind of chomping at the bit coming, and then take your chances there.
Shane Graham yesterday, Neil Rackers today, missing those huge field goals. What do you think Sean Payton's telling Garrett Hartley right now?
If you miss it, adios, muchacho.
That quick, huh?
Yes.
I mean, I guess there's no one there to back him up either.
You got a whole off season too. If it costs you the game, you got a whole off season to find a new kicker.
All right, well, give me your prediction.
I think the Saints are going to win. I think they win. It's going to be a shootout, but I think they could win, say 34-24. I think they could win by 10.
Only 34 points?
Yeah, I think the Saints make a couple of stops though to cut Arizona down. I think they get some turnovers, some interceptions. I keep harping on it, but with this defense, if it's healthy, it's going to make a difference.
You're going to need a pass rush. I think you've got to make Kurt Warner uncomfortable. Larry Holder covers the Saints for CBSSports.com. We always appreciate you coming down.
You got it.
All right, stay with us. Much more.
Hey, new moms, are you
Well, this was just coming into the newsroom as I came up. The Cardinals have just scored again, and the Packers have just scored again. And Greg Williams has just put another videotape in the machine and another pot of coffee on the stove. It's going to be a long night. For the Cardinals, it's going to be a short week, but right now they probably could fly to New Orleans without a plane. Can the Saints bring them back down to earth next Saturday? In the course of that classic game yesterday, as a Saints fan, your emotions probably changed as rapidly as the scoreboard. In the end, you probably wanted to play either the Cardinals or the Packers defense, neither of their offenses and neither of the teams. Somehow the Saints have to find a way to pressure Kurt Warner. The Packers seldom did, sacking him just once in 33 attempts, and that off a botched flea flicker. And even when he was being hit, his sensational core of receivers, playing without 1,000-yard target Anquan Bolden, was making spectacular catches for him downfield. When a game goes to overtime and each team punts just one time in the course of it, the defenses were little more than speed bumps. What will they be on Saturday? How much did that victory take out of the Cardinals? How much were they invigorated by it? How much will the Saints benefit from a week's rest? How much will the Cardinals benefit from the momentum of a thrilling victory? A week's worth of questions will be resolved in an afternoon of answers. Who will have the right ones, and what will be the entrance exam for the NFC Championship? And we'll be responding.
Well, there'll be endless breakdowns this week of Cardinals versus Saints. Can the Saints slow down Kurt Warner? Can the Cardinals do the same to Drew Brees? Do the Cardinals have momentum heading into the second round, or are they at a disadvantage by playing Sunday and 6 days later having to play at New Orleans? Here's my question. Can the Saints approach the level of their play in November? I say approach because for the first 11 weeks, the Saints were unconscious. That next level is good enough. If the Saints get there, they win, and you can toss out the scouting reports, because no one in their right mind expected Green Bay and Arizona to score 96 points yesterday.
Highest scoring game in the playoff history?
I am impressed.
Thanks, Ed. We'll be right back.
From WWL TV Channel 4, this is an Eyewitness Sports special. Jim Henderson's commentaries on A Season to Remember.
Throughout this season, there have been predictions and prognostications, though none quite as bold or as early as this one. August 7th, 2009, the Saints are going to the Super Bowl. Yes, I said it, somewhat facetiously. WWL Radio has the tape to prove it. Now, whether or not it comes true remains to be seen, but it reminds us of the power of words, to celebrate, criticize, and yes, go out on a limb. Over the next hour, we'll reflect on some of the words that I've written about this season, beginning 17 weeks ago. when the Saints faced the Lions. For once, the ball and the breaks seemed to go their way. And to Saints fans' delight, the scoreboard reflected that as the year progressed. It's not just whom you play, it's when you play them. And the Saints would seem to be the beneficiary of that for the here and now, for the there and then. Yesterday, for the fourth time in team history, the Saints got a rookie head coach in his season opener. They have now won them all over Tommy Prothro of the Rams, Jimmy Johnson starting rookie quarterback Troy Aikman of the Cowboys, Greg Williams of the Bills, and now Jim Schwartz starting rookie quarterback Matthew Stafford of the Lions. Experience is an invaluable teacher, and the Saints gave them all their first losing experience that they would all benefit from, but afterward. The Saints showed from the very first play from scrimmage yesterday that they would be the aggressor. No feeling each other out in the early rounds by trading jabs, allowing a big underdog time to gain its footing and some confidence. In years past, that first play would have been calling for Ricky Williams or Deuce McAllister running straight ahead between the tackles for 2 or 3 yards. Yesterday, the first play featured Drew Brees lining up 4 targets in front of him and firing at them for 14 yards to Devery Henderson. Next, it was lining up Reggie Bush as a wide receiver and hitting him for 26 more. 2 runs and 1 pass later, the Saints were in the end zone less than 3 minutes into the game. The Lions never recovered. Marcus Colston would be the first receptor of the 6 touchdown passes Drew Brees would deliver. 8 Saints caught passes, 5 of them caught touchdowns. Jeremy Shockey got 2, his first 2 as a Saint. Heath Evans got 1, his first as a Saint. It was almost like Brees was playing the family Santa around the tree Christmas morning. Okay, who hasn't gotten a present yet? He handed one to Reggie Bush in the last 2 minutes for a score that a penalty forced the Saints to put on layaway. The schedule maker provided the Saints with their weakest opponent at what could very well be that opponent's weakest moment of the season. And the Saints took full and unrelenting advantage of that. Now it's on to Philadelphia, where the Saints face a much sterner test, but a week prior to Michael Vick's addition and a week after Donovan McNabb's probable subtraction. While the Eagles were helping the Saints' cause by beating the Panthers were helping the Saints' cause by making McNabb a McRib sandwich, cracking one of his and sidelining him this Sunday in all likelihood. If so, the Saints defense will now try to make a Cobb salad out of young Kevin Cobb, his probable replacement. It's not just whom you play, it's when you play them. And if you cling to the hope that finally the stars might be aligned in your Saints' favor, you might have gotten another reason to believe.
Taking advantage of every opportunity was a theme that would reappear in Week 2 when the Saints faced the Eagles and a 48-22 win.
Given that both the Saints and the Eagles only had 2 quarterbacks active for yesterday's game, it might be an oddity never to have been seen before and never to be seen again. There were 5 Pro Bowl quarterbacks on those 2 rosters yesterday: Brees and Brunell for the Saints, McNabb, Vick, and Garcia for the Eagles. 5 Pro Bowl quarterbacks, but unfortunately for the Eagles, none of whom was named Kevin Cobb. For the second straight game, the Saints had the good fortune of facing a quarterback making his first NFL start. And for the second straight game, they took advantage of the inexperience of each. Andy Reid's confidence in Cobb was expressed in the frequency with which he took the ball out of his hands and placed it directly in those of wide receiver Deshaun Jackson or running back Brian Westbrook in the Wildcat formation. The more the Saints saw of it, the more it became the Mildcat formation, and the less Cobb had a chance to develop a rhythm with his wide receivers instead of pretending to be one. And what about your Saints? What are they pretending to be or contending to be? This much we know: score 45 at home against the Lions, and the rest of the NFL universe barely takes notice. Score 48 against the Eagles in Philadelphia, and it can help but do so. The post-game call-in shows in Philadelphia were labeling Drew Brees the NFL's best quarterback. The morning papers there were decrying the Eagles' reliance on gimmicks, while the Saints played basic, balanced, largely error-free football, the kind of winning football that will have the country heaping a week's worth of praise upon them before next Sunday's game in Buffalo. Winning produces more electricity than it uses. All this week, Sean Payton will be trying to pull the plug to keep the focus within and not to be distracted by the praise from without. As he left the locker room yesterday, Marcus Colston, perhaps the best player on the team who's the least braggadocious, wore a T-shirt with a simple inscription: SB 44. As we left the stadium, we had to ask directions to the nearest cab stand from a fan in an Eagles jersey. He politely instructed us, paused for a moment, and then asked, "Are you guys from New Orleans?" When we said we were, he pointed quickly in the opposite direction from which he'd instruct us. We found our way. Colston and the Saints are finding theirs. We all know where we want to go eventually. Disregarding the efforts of those who would distract, dissuade, misdirect, and mislead us during the week ahead is the next step in that journey.
The Saints' third game was a tale of two teams, headed in very different directions. For a change, the Saints were on the right side of the arrow, dominating the Bills in a 27-7 lopsided victory.
As the Saints arrived at Ralph Wilson Stadium Sunday through a gauntlet of tailgating Bills supporters, the team bus was greeted by a liquor bottle that was hurled from the crowd and shattered in its path, and hundreds of fans holding a finger aloft, apparently to warn the Saints what the temperature will be there in about a month. In western New York, the leaves were changing, but unfortunately the Bills were not. Times are tough up there. The bills are down, taxes are up, and the long-suffering citizenry seems powerless to change the course of either. The stimulus package for both seems to have failed. 90% of the residents who took advantage of the Cash for Clunker program there bought new snowmobiles. They've had it with conservative head coach Dick Duran, who's been labeled as a guy who always plays with a short stick when he comes up against a good football team. That reputation was hardly dispelled by his first decision on Sunday. Okay, guys, if we win the toss, we're going to defer. We're going to put that Saints offense on the field first and see how their second-best passing attack in the league does against our second-worst in the league pass defense. We're going to see if that offense that has marched the length of the field for touchdowns on their first possession of the game against the Lions and the Eagles can do that against the Bills. Bills win the toss, choose to defer, kick the ball to the Saints, who drive 82 yards in 10 plays for a touchdown. Okay, guys, so much for that. Time to circle the wagons. Time to go back to the drawing board. The Bills have circled the wagons more times than Gabby Hayes. They've gone back to the drawing board more times than Walt Disney. Of course, Hayes and Disney are dead, and Duran's not feeling so good himself at the moment. You know you're going bad when you're second-guessed before the game's first play. Bills fans have had it with the conservative play calling of offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt and the conservative play executing of quarterback Trent Edwards. Edwards looks downfield with the timidity and the nervous haste of a teenager caught perusing the selections in an adult bookstore. The Bills have $15 million invested in ends Lee Evans and Terrell Owens. After 3 games, the pair has a total of 2 touchdown receptions. That's the same total 2 other Buffalo ends have. But Aaron Schobel and Ryan Denny are defensive ends. Denny caught his Sunday, a 25-yarder from punter holder Brian Moorman on a fake field goal beautifully conceived by Chalmette native and Bills special teams coach Bobby April. All Bills fans love April. April's one of the best at what he does in the NFL, and April's likely to be the next month they'll see the sun. Their punter is their best passer, and their pass rushers are their best pass catchers. Clearly, the Bills' problem is that they're playing guys out of position. Other than that, they watch their team have more 3-and-outs than the Washington Nationals. They see their team lose to a Saints team playing without its Pro Bowl left tackle, leading receiver of a year ago, and leading rusher. They see a flu-weakened Pierre Thomas run for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns all in the second half. Afterward, Duran urged his team to go shake hands with Thomas. Not really to congratulate him, just hoping Thomas would sneeze on them. The cold and flu season is coming to Buffalo, but it just might be better than the football season. The Bills season is headed south, the Saints is headed north. Awful for one, awfully good for the other.
Come on, New Orleans!
Up next, Jim looks back on 2 pivotal games for the Saints. One against an undefeated Giant, and the other a win that almost slipped away. More from A Season to Remember coming up.
Mark down week 4 of this Saints season as the first in which the words playoffs, dream, and history appeared in my weekly commentary. 3 little words with huge who dat meaning. The win over the Jets gave us a sign of things to come.
A gift of a baseball bat to every Saints player Saturday by the coaching staff conveyed the message, "Bring the wood" to the Jets in the Superdome on Sunday. Message received, delivery accomplished. The result is a 4-0 start by your New Orleans Saints, a start as encouraging for the way it's been fashioned as the record itself. As you looked at the schedule prior to the season, you would have been happy with a 3-1 start before the bye week. Instead, the sprint out of the gate in a 4-0 record provides the Saints with a bit of a cushion before the season resumes and the schedule toughens. In those 4 games, many of the offseason concerns have been allayed, at least for now. The suspect running game has prospered. The retooled defense has congealed in a remarkably short time. Yesterday, as that defense was about to take the field for the first time, with the Saints leading 3-0, there was actually an electric air of anticipation on the sideline and in the stands. Anticipation about a defense taking the field that in recent past would have provoked dread. It's not the Dome Patrol yet, but it's finally worthy of a moniker that doesn't include a profanity. 2 of its newcomers, Darren Sharper and Jabari Greer, have helped make this the best secondary in team history. Sharper providing the grand larceny of 97 and 99-yard interception returns. That makes Sharper only the 2nd player in NFL history to have 2 90-plus interception returns in a single season. The other, Deion Sanders in 1994. Greer providing the type of tight coverage on the corner Saints fans may never have seen at the position that has been a franchise-long problem. And while we're at it, a well-deserved nod to the personnel department that brought in free agents Sharper, Greer, Evans, and Hargrove. Solid upgrades at every position. And a draft that, though small in quantity, produced 2 quality selections in Jenkins and Morstead, with perhaps more to come after careers resume when injuries heal. All these players have contributed to a 4-0 start in which the Saints have never trailed in 16 quarters to begin the season. That ranks as the 4th longest streak in NFL history since 1970. 1 quarter of the way through this season, making history is a distinct possibility for this team. Who would have thought that 4 games into the season, the Saints would be 4-0, that they would never have trailed, and that in just the 5th game of the season, when the Giants come here on October 18th, it will probably be for each team's unbeaten season to continue in a game that this early could already have home field advantage in the playoffs implications. Wake me, shake me when this dream is over, but right now we're all enjoying it way too much to be disturbed.
By their next game, it would have been easy for the Saints to be distracted by their history-making success. It was a clash of 2 undefeateds, the Giants and the Saints, spoiling Eli Manning's first trip to the Dome.
6 weeks into this season, there's a distinct division in the NFL between the haves and the have-nots. As to the have-nots, the Saints have been there, been that. As to the haves, the Saints have never been here, never been this. Yes, they've been 5-0 before, but never with a team that was this deep, this balanced, this good. There are 5 unbeatens in the NFL, 3 always beaten, winless teams. Never have there been this many unbeaten teams this late in the season. For the Saints to be one of them is remarkable, for the way that they've gotten there has convinced many they're invincible. The best of the best. Less than a third of the way through this season, that's premature speculation that only the unknown future will determine. But for now, enjoy being a part of the discussion. The Saints, wisely, won't. This veteran-laden team, the 2nd oldest in the NFL, has a wisdom and a maturity about it. That maturity allowed it to remain focused through a bye week of inactivity, to heal the body without sacrificing the soul of this team's accountability. It's a team accountable to each other as individuals, to their teammates, to their fans. They returned to action yesterday rested and ready, with Drew Brees locked and loaded, laser sharp, fitting the football into tight spots, big spots, with no drops from a receiving core that sliced up the Giants with a clinical precision. Yesterday wasn't the first day a Saints team has come into a measuring stick game, but it might have been the first that it didn't turn into a dipstick game for the Saints, in which they were found to be a quart low on passion, on performance, on play calling, on play executing. Certainly the experts said the Giants would provide the litmus test for what the Saints were made of. Instead, it was the Saints who provided such a test for what the Giants were made of. Brees going after, among others, Giants free agent safety C.C. Brown, who suggested on this day at least that CC was short for can't cover. But as many suggested, these 2 teams may see each other again in the postseason. The goal for the Saints the rest of the way is to ensure that if they do meet again, it's here in the toughest environment any visitor in the NFL will encounter. It's here in the Louisiana Superdome.
In Week 7, for the first time this season, fans really saw some of the magic that would mark this team as history-making. For the first time, winning wasn't easy, but it was exhilarating for players, fans, and even those of us in the press box.
Wow. I can't think of a polysyllabic synonym to better express my reaction to that game yesterday in Miami. Just that one monosyllabic word will have to suffice. Wow. Even spelled backward, it still sounds nice. Wow. That was as bad as it's been in the second quarter, as good as it gets in the fourth. But who's to say it won't get even better there in February? There in South Florida, land of stone crabs and silicone, where it doesn't look like they'll run out of either anytime soon, despite an insatiable demand for both. When it was 24-3 Dolphins in the second quarter, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say in this space at this time. Something about how this is what reality looks like. This is what reality feels like. Something about how even though this loss hurts, it doesn't hurt nearly as much thanks to other losses suffered by the Falcons, Vikings, and then the Giants. When it was over and the Saints had emphatically answered affirmatively the only remaining question about this team, could it overcome adversity, I'm thinking about how grateful I feel to be saying this, that this is the best team in the NFC, maybe in the NFL. In the worst of times, an embattled coach can only acknowledge his critics by saying, as Bill Parcells and his protégés have often had to say, you are what your record says you are. In these, the best of times, it's the last thing that Sean Payton wants to hear. You are what your record says you are. The record says the Saints are the best team in the NFC. The record says you are one of the 3 best undefeated teams in the NFL. These are the best of times. These are the worst of times. The best of times to be a fan of the Saints, the worst of times to be their coach trying to perpetuate the one game at a time mindset that got you to this point. But that's a pretty good problem to have. In Landshark Stadium, where Jimmy Buffett's song Fins to the Left, Fins to the Right was played over and over in the first half, life was a beach for the first 30 minutes. In the last 30 minutes for Doll fans, life was well, it wasn't a beach. During the remarkable second half, Saints fans were probably composing their own lyrics to another Buffett song. Come Monday, it'll be all right. Come Monday, we're going to party all night. We've spent 2 lovely days while catching your rays, and we plan to stop back on this ride. In February at Super Bowl 44.
Next, Jim reflects on a stellar Saints performance before a national audience and 2 important wins on the road. More commentaries on a season to remember coming up.
When the Saints faced the Falcons in their Monday night showdown, for the first time, a national TV audience got to see what this team was made of. Their performance turned heads and gave any doubters even more reason to believe in the black and gold.
The Saints' trek to the promised land of the Super Bowl has often been detoured by the Atlanta Falcons onto the boulevard of broken dreams. Hail Marys and Big Bens have so often trumped the prayers of Saints fans in the waning moments, whispering Our Fathers under their breath. But these are not your father's Saints. Your father's Saints would have found among the debris of last night plenty of ways to lose. Coughing up 3 fumbles, 1 for a touchdown, giving up an interception, fumbling twice in the fourth quarter when ball security was even more important than ball advancement. Failing to recover an onside kick, giving Atlanta one more chance to break their hearts with an improbable last-second comeback. Your father would have expected the Saints to lose under those circumstances. His children now expect the Saints to win, as they did late last night. At the final gun, eyes were closing in the East about the time the polls were opening on the first Tuesday of November. In New Orleans, a day-long party was getting its second wind, and the eyes of Saints fans were wide open, staring in appreciation at a 7-0 start and a 3-game lead in the NFC South over the Falcons. 7 straight wins, in which the smallest margin of victory was last night's 8-point defeat of the Falcons. For the first of 3 games this season, the nation got a chance to see for itself what we have through the first 6 games of the season, and while some might have left unimpressed by the way it was accomplished, most had to be impressed that it was. The most analytical of all such eyes are those watching in Las Vegas, who must set aside passion and view dispassionately a team's performance. This Sunday, the Carolina Panthers come to the Superdome. The Carolina Panthers last Sunday beat an Arizona Cardinal team in Arizona that nearly won the most recent Super Bowl, beat them by 13 points, 34-21. The Carolina Panthers have beaten the Saints 7 straight games that the Saints have been the home team, 6 in the Superdome, once in Baton Rouge. Despite that history, Las Vegas makes the Saints 2-touchdown favorites this Sunday. Not since 2001 have the Saints beaten the Panthers in the Superdome. Some young Saints fans newly welcomed into the Who Dat Nation have never seen the Saints beat the Panthers in New Orleans. But then again, these are not your father's Saints, nor theirs.
The next week, while many of us were watching a tropical storm in the Gulf, we also had an eye on a division foe and a home game win against the Panthers that had us looking a little more deeply into the Saints' not-so-secret formula.
It's November. November. There's something in the Gulf and there's nothing in the Saints' loss column. That's September, isn't it? Start fast, finish strong. It's been the Saints' formula for success, but not in the last 3 games when the Saints have started slowly, but overcome that with an extremely strong finish. Yesterday, through much of the first half, Drew Brees was having a worse game than an SEC official. But as he had in the previous 2 wins over the Dolphins and Falcons, he presided over a second-half rally in which he was harder to control than a day-old haircut. In the last 3 fourth quarters, the Saints have outscored their opponents 22-0, 7-6, and 10-0. 14 of those points have been scored by the defense, a defense the NFL ranked 15th overall going into yesterday's game. 11th against the run and 17th against the pass. Middle of the pack, average defense, using those statistics that are only based on yards surrendered. Surface statistics, one analyst called them in an email that he sent me prior to yesterday's game. He suggested we look more deeply into what this Saints defense truly is. As he pointed out, the Saints had surrendered unimpressive yardage totals because of the Saints offense. Because that offense, which was number 1 in the league going into yesterday's game, scores so quickly, scores so much, and has recently turned the ball over so frequently, the Saints defense had taken the field more often than any other defense in the league. Hence, more opportunities to surrender yards than any other defense in the league had to endure. But look beneath the surface at where the Saints defense ranked in subsurface statistics. Interceptions, number 1. Passes defended, number 1. Opposing passer rating, number 1. Defensive touchdowns scored, number 1. Completion percentage by the opposing passer, number 1. Third down percentage, number 1. Turnover differential, number 4. Passing yards surrendered per attempt, number 4. Red zone defense, number 5. On the surface, Sean Payton should be considered one of the favorites for NFL Coach of the Year, and he should. He may be. But if you look below the surface, the Coach of the Year may not be one of the 32 head coaches in the NFL. The Coach of the Year may be standing next to Sean Payton on the Saints sideline. Write-in candidate, anyone? And remember, that's Greg with 3 G's.
Next, it was the first of the dreaded trap games. 2 road contests that pitted the Saints against the worst of the NFL. Still, the Saints were unbeaten, and while their performance against the Rams wasn't the best we've seen, the Saints did what they could to keep the momentum going.
When the Saints last visited St. Louis, it was in the 7th game of the Katrina-displaced 2005 season. The Saints would lose 28-17, their 3rd loss in what would be 6 straight losses, and one of the 11 losses the Saints would suffer in their last 12 games. If the Saints were to go through a season winless, I truly believe it would not be more miserable than that one was. None really could be. Which made this weekend's trip back to St. Louis all the more remarkable in the way the fortunes of these 2 franchises franchises have turned 180 degrees. It's almost as if the two had somehow swapped identities in the 4 years since. It is the former world champion Rams on perhaps their way to the worst season in franchise history. The never champion Saints on their way to perhaps their best. In St. Louis, a dome that has had 3 naming rights partners since the Saints have been coming there has thousands of empty seats. Those that are occupied include thousands of Saints fans making more noise in support of the visitors than the home team gets from its own. Back in New Orleans, a dome that has never been able to sell its naming rights is filled to the brim for each home game. Tens of thousands of fans queue up for the privilege of paying for season tickets to be there. In St. Louis, they're worried about the potential sale of the team and the possibility it could be moved, maybe even back to Los Angeles. In 2005, the move of the Saints from New Orleans was a very real possibility. Now there are no such worries for a team that's going nowhere but up. This weekend in St. Louis, as soon as the locals found out you were from New Orleans, they only asked for mercy. You heard comparisons from St. Louis fans of the Saints to Mike Martz's Greatest Show on Turf team. Comparisons that often acknowledge the Saints as the better team. After the Saints had taken a 5-point victory yesterday in a game in which they never trailed, after the Saints had extended their record to a perfect 9-0, after the Rams had lost their 9th straight at home and their 18th in 19 games overall, it was almost like these longtime bitter foes had swapped locker rooms and post-game locker room reactions. It was the Rams celebrating a moral victory for a change as a 5-point loser to a 2-touchdown favorite. The losing quarterback, Mark Bulger, said there were a lot of positives. At the same time, there were a lot of negatives. The winning quarterback, Drew Brees, might have said there were a lot of negatives. At the same time, there were a lot of positives. Rams center Jason Brown said no one can walk out of this locker room with their heads down. That was almost the posture you would have expected the Saints to exit theirs. The 9-0 Saints, the runaway leaders of the NFC South. Of the 2009 Saints, great things are expected. Of the 2005 Saints, only bad things were. So much has changed for the better since. Of that, we should be so thankful.
Dominating was the only way to describe the Saints' performance against Tampa Bay on the road. The team had its sights set on 10-0. And within minutes, any thoughts of an upset were easily put to rest.
With about 10 minutes.
Even at 13-0, some were still saying the Saints weren't for real. Beat the Patriots, they said, and it's a different story. Look no further than an unstoppable offense that Monday night in November, and its mission accomplished.
Well, as Bill Capel just showed you, it was a cold, dreary, rainy Tuesday, and what a beautiful day it was to be a Saints fan. And how could you not be today? You have never awakened to an 11-0 Tuesday if indeed you went to bed at all last night. If the rest of the country had questions about the Saints, last night must have answered most of them. Maybe only one remains. Can they win a close game? We may never know, and who would have a problem with that? Last night, as 1.5-point favorites, they beat the Patriots by 21. They have now won their 11 games by a margin of 17 points per game. They average 9.6 yards per play, the third highest average in NFL regular season history since the merger. The average time of possession for their 5 touchdowns was 2 minutes and 28 seconds. A pat on the back, by the way, to one member of the organization you've probably never heard of, Pro Scouting Director Ryan Pace. It was he who stole Mike McKenzie away from the clutches of the Green Bay Packers last week as the Pack was about to bring him back. What an unexpected contribution McKenzie made last night as he donned once again his familiar number 34. The only guy who might be that efficient with less practice over the course of a year might be Santa Claus. Sure, he's got those reindeer and the presents and all, but McKenzie has better hair and an interception of Tom Brady. Advantage McKenzie. And with McKenzie's help, the Patriots, with 5.5 minutes left in that game, had Brian Hoyer at quarterback, throwing to Isaiah Stanback and handing off to BenJarvis Green Ellis. The Saints were leading on the scoreboard. The Patriots were leading in hyphens. Advantage Saints. The Who Dats had turned the 3-time Super Bowl champions into the Who Days. The over-under before the game on points scored was 55. 55 were scored. The over-under after the game on smiles for the two coaches was 1. You should have taken the under. Bill Belichick had no reason to smile and didn't. Sean Payton had 38 reasons to smile and wouldn't. He continues to call the tune that the Saints dance to in step. One of restraint, one of focus, one of looking ahead to the next challenge instead of reveling too long in the latest successfully overcome. Last night might have looked like a monumental upset to the rest of the country, but not here. It was merely the latest confirmation of what those of us who have watched this team all season already knew. It can win in many ways. It has won in many ways. It had won convincingly in every game, and now it has again. Nothing has changed except the ever-growing expanse of the Who Dat Nation. First the South, now the country, next the football world.
In a perfect season, it's inevitable that every team will get some gifts. And in the nation's capital on December 6th, the Saints got one against the Redskins.
'Tis the season of miracles. You might have thought so last Monday. I mean, did you ever think you would have a better week ahead of you than Tiger Woods? You have to know so this Monday, when no NFL fan in the country deserved to wake up with a bigger smile than a New Orleans Saints fan. After what happened yesterday afternoon in Landover, Maryland, you just knew the Vikings had to lose to the Cardinals last night in Arizona to give the Saints a 2-game lead in the race to be the NFC's top seed. Of course they would. Of course they did. How could they not when everything else that had to break right for the Saints did previously? Change kickers, and if Garrett Hartley misses one of the 4 field goals he made, you lose. Of course, he didn't. Thomas Morstead, who's been wonderful this season, hits a 27-yard punt in the second quarter like he's kicking a medicine ball, and the Saints get the ball back when it comes down on the back of an unsuspecting Redskin blocker. The Saints are able to continue marching downfield in the final 2 minutes before Drew Brees aims a desperation pass at Jeremy Shockey, only to see it intercepted by Kareem Moore, who has it stolen by Robert Meacham and returned for a 44-yard touchdown. Upstairs, the interception is challenged. Down on the sideline for perhaps the only time in his career, Brees is hoping he did throw an interception, and he did not throw an incompletion. Replay confirms the call on the field. Who would have thought the Saints' 9th return for a touchdown this season would come from a wide receiver returning a fumble? This just might be our day. Fourth quarter, and it's not looking like it. Redskins about to put it away, leading 30-23, first and goal at the New Orleans 4. Run for a yard, run for a 2-yard loss, run for a yard. No touchdown, but no problem. A chip shot field goal gives the Redskins a 10-point lead with less than 2 minutes to play. Sean Sweezum could kick a 23-yard field goal with his eyes closed. Might have been better off if he had. With eyes wide open, he stares in disbelief at a 23-yard field goal sailing wide right. Not even close. Of course, the Saints would score to force overtime. Of course they did. Of course, the Saints would find a way to win in OT. Of course they did. With the replay booth challenging a down-by-contact call on the field. Play reversed, Saints ball. 8-play, 36-yard, game-ending drive on Hartley's 18-yard field goal. What a difference one little preposition makes. Games like this used to always happen to the Saints. Now they happen for the Saints. The most bizarre loss in Redskin history, they're calling it there today. The most bizarre win in Saints history, they're celebrating here. Before the game, Redskin coach Jim Zorn implored his team to dig down deep. It just wasn't quite deep enough to bury the still undefeated and newly crowned champions of the NFC South, your New Orleans Saints.
It's an understatement to say a lot was on the line when the Saints faced the Falcons. How about a run at the most wins in a season and in franchise history? Old-time Saints fans had trouble comprehending both. But again, we reminded them, these aren't your father's Saints.
This Saturday night, when the Saints host the Dallas Cowboys, will be the Saints' first Saturday game in the regular season in 4 years. The last, Christmas Eve, 2005. Thinking back to that one revives a lot of awful memories, in contrast to this Saturday's game, which evokes such wonderful prospects. I remember that game on Christmas Eve of 2005 in the depths of depression for a city and its professional football team. The Saints would lose to the Detroit Lions 13-12 in the final home game of the season in San Antonio. I remember the broadcast team had arranged, along with the officiating crew, to get a police escort to the airport to beat the traffic in order to make our flights home to be with our families on Christmas Eve. I remember lifting a toast at the airport as we awaited our flight, a toast to the prospects of never having to see San Antonio, Texas again. Though its citizens had treated us fine, thankfully I never have. None of us could have imagined in our wildest dreams what the future would hold 4 years, nearly to the day, later. Not only could we not have imagined the state of this franchise, we weren't sure back then what state the franchise would be in. Now we have an unbeaten football team, the best team in franchise history, supported better than it ever has been in a facility that has never been better. And of all the wonderful things this season has meant for us all, I think that some of these in the long run will prove to be the best. This team has created a new, bigger, and more positive generation of Saints fans than the franchise has ever produced. You see black kids with Breeze jerseys. You see white kids with Colston jerseys, rooting as one for a Saints team that has never been more deserving of its fans on and off the field. And this is a new generation of Saints fans raised on winning and pride instead of losing and embarrassment. These kids are spellbound till the final seconds in the Superdome by a team that never gives up. Mine, meanwhile, and perhaps yours as well, were often so disinterested in another lackluster loss that the second halves of games were spent trying to see if you could land a paper airplane fashioned from the game program on the playing field, or engaging in a game of Nerf football on the concourses, or trying to commandeer a serving cart to luge down the walkways. What this team has meant to fans of all ages when it comes to civic pride is inestimable. I didn't know where we would be 4 years ago, but I can safely say I never envisioned it would be here in this way. In this magical season, in this magical Christmas season, these circumstances should remind us all of how the Redskins might have summed things up to their neighbors a week ago today, after all the improbable things that contributed to the winning streak's perpetuation. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
Next, the news no fan wanted to hear, and how the voice of the Saints puts it all in perspective as we wrap up a season to remember with more Jim Henderson commentaries.
All good things must come to an end. Unfortunately for the Saints, the nation watched as America's team ended the dream of the black and gold faithful. Gone were the Cowboys' typical December stumbles, taking with them the hope for a perfect Saints season.
It began poorly and ended worsely for the Saints on Saturday night. With a goal to start more quickly on both sides of the ball, the Saints did neither. Dallas, which had scored just 43 first-quarter points through its first 13 games, an average of 3 points per first quarter, got 14 in the opening 15 minutes against the Saints. Dallas, which hadn't scored a first possession touchdown in a game since Thanksgiving, that's Thanksgiving of 2008, took only a minute and 46 seconds to get one Saturday night. The Saints, meanwhile, were a quick 3 and out on their first possession. In their last 4 games on their first possession, the Saints have scored none, 3, none, and 3 points. Their opponents on their first possessions in those 4 games have scored 7, 3, 7, and 7. And as if to underscore that the second half would be second verse, same as the first, the Cowboys drove 74 yards for another touchdown on their first possession of the third quarter. The Saints lost 3 yards on their first possession and punted. Early in the season, the Saints were starting fast and playing with the house's money. In recent weeks, they've been playing from behind, hoping desperately that fate would deal them that winning card to fill an inside straight. It was only a matter of time when it wouldn't, and Saturday night it didn't. The Saints would run the ball just 13 times. Dallas, 36 times. The result would leave Drew Brees battered and bruised, harried, hurried, and harassed, sacked 4 times, intercepted 1 time, and fumbling twice. Not surprisingly, 13-0 became 13-0 more, at least for now. For now, the euphoria is over. The bandwagon has hit a pothole. I don't think my email this week will include as many Saints poems and songs as the 13-game winning streak inspired. For now, the plethora of poems don't parse and the songs don't rhyme. That's not to say they won't again for a season that the Saints still control, but have momentarily lost navigation of. To sleep, perchance to dream once more of sunny Miami shores. A dream inspired by a perfect start. A pleasant dream not concluded, merely interrupted, and hopefully resumed.
Hoping to prove that the Dallas loss was a mere aberration, the Saints faced Tampa Bay at home with much on the line. A victory would give them home field for the playoffs, but a second questionable performance had the Saints waiting another day.
Well, I would imagine the Saints Nation is a conflicted one tonight. It feels badly, but not that badly. It feels good, but not that good. Please excuse the use of the adjective good when it should be the adverb well. But stay with me if you will. It has 13 reasons to feel good and 2 reasons to feel badly. 2 reasons to feel badly and 13 reasons to feel good. 13-2 is the record. A 2-game losing streak can't erase what a 13-game winning streak accomplished. And yet, those 2 losses put in doubt the worth of what the 13-game winning streak provided. The Saints have secured a first-round playoff bye and at least 1 home playoff game. Home has been the scene of the last 2 losses, the only losses of the season in which the Saints are 7-0 on the road. How much has changed since the Saints last won at home, that dominating 38-17 win over the Patriots on Monday night, which made the Saints 11-0 and the odds-on choice to win the Super Bowl at that time. Since then, the Saints have gone from swaggering to staggering. Then the Saints were being called a team of destiny. And while they still control their playoff destiny, it suddenly seems that without divine intervention, the Saints seem incapable of intervening on their own behalf. Tonight, they will rely on the Chicago Bears, of all people, to provide it for them. A victory over the Vikings makes the Saints the NFC's top seed, already assured of a first-round bye and 2 home playoff games, provided they can win their first. As we have seen in the last 8 days, that's much less of a certainty than it appeared to be a month ago. Assuming the Vikings win, the Saints go to Carolina next week, needing to take care of business themselves to earn that #1 seed, or hoping that the Giants can defeat the Vikings in the Metrodome in a game being played at the same time the Saints meet the Panthers. And what a trick bag that could provide. Players who might benefit from a 2-week rest might instead have to play, and for how long? And possibly at what cost? Could more injuries be incurred in victory? Could more doubts arise in defeat? Could confidence be bolstered in victory? Could regulars benefit from returning to action before a 1-week layoff, regardless of the outcome? Could the swagger be restored with a win? Would the stagger become a stumble that leads to a first-game playoff fall? The Saints have fallen and can't get up at the moment, but both the Cowboys and the Bucs have now provided a home alert. Suddenly, home doesn't look nearly as inviting as it once did. The Saints have worn T-shirts this season saying, "Smell greatness" and "Finish strong." The standings through 15 games say the Saints are the best team in the NFC, and now some new T-shirts for inspiration might best be printed with the slogan, "Prove it."
As it was in the magical season of 2006, the Saints had nothing to play for in the final week of the season against the Carolina Panthers. In resting most of their players, the Saints turned their sights early to the playoffs ahead.
Sports interest survives and thrives on the second guess. No one gets second guessed more than NFL head coaches, and none of them get second guessed more at any time of the year than now. The beauty of the second guess is that you can never be wrong. Look at what poor Jim Caldwell's going through in Indianapolis. Since he pulled Peyton Manning last week with a lead on the Jets, the Colts have lost their last 2 regular season games as they head into the playoffs as the top seed in the AFC. Lose in the playoffs and he'll be flayed by second guessers saying he ruined the team's momentum. Win the Super Bowl, and he'll still be criticized by second guessers who will say that if he'd played Manning the last 2 games, he could have had a Super Bowl and a perfect season. Caldwell's response to his critics: "My job is to win championships, not to have an unbeaten regular season." Sean Payton's predicament heading into yesterday was similar. His job is to win championships, and if a 3-game losing streak to end the season while the team's most integral players regain or retain their health is the price, he says it's no price at all in his judgment. Look at it this way. What if the Saints had played their starters yesterday to regain the supposed momentum for the playoffs and had still lost? Then this team's confidence heading into the playoffs would be certainly at rock bottom, while those who might have healed are placed in jeopardy, along with those who weren't hurt and might now be because of their exposure to injury in a meaningless game. And that's what Commissioner Roger Goodell would mandate in his half-baked idea to reward playoff teams with draft choices for playing their starters in late-season games that are of no consequence to them. For what? To appease fantasy league players, odds makers whose betting line might lose some of its integrity, whiny owners and coaches of teams that might need the help of playoff-bound teams to enhance their own playoff chances that they couldn't enhance on their own? Tell you what, Saints, you play Drew Brees, Pierre Thomas, and Jeremy Shockey, and we'll give you an additional 7th-round draft pick. If I'm Sean Payton, I take the pick and have Brees hand the ball off 30 times to Kyle Eckel. Would Goodell have to legislate how many times Brees would have to throw the ball and to whom to ensure the integrity of the game? The Saints' leading receiver yesterday was Darnell Dinkins with 4 catches, 4 times the number of balls he had caught all season, and as many catches as regulars Meacham, Henderson, and Colston combined for. It didn't look like Meacham, Henderson, and Colston particularly wanted to be out there. And when Robert Meacham was laid out on the goal line like a snow angel in the 3rd quarter of a one-sided game, you could certainly understand why. If the Lord helps those who help themselves, the Lord of the NFL should do the same. And the reward of a draft choice should not be the punishment for success. That's an NFL debate for the future. But our focus is on the here and now, or rather, what may soon be. And for the fans and for me, that commentary can't come soon enough. Thanks for joining us.
Miami. It's time to get ready for the gridiron battle of the Saints season as the Arizona Cardinals attempt to take on the boys in black and gold for the NFC playoffs at home in the Dome.
He's in. Yes, sir.
From the French Quarter to Metairie to the North Shore from inside the Dome, let's cheer on the home team to get fired up and turn back on the Midas touch with their record-breaking 13-3 season as the Saints keep their eye on the prize to go marching into a black and gold Super Bowl.
And welcome to this ABC 26 News special, Mission Miami. I'm Jessica Holly.
And I'm Jocelyn Lockwood. We've got all the tools to get you pumped up for some gridiron action at home in the Dome while the Saints gear up for the big playoff game. But first, for so many Saints fans, the big game is as much about food as it is football.
Exactly, and we're going to talk about tailgating a little later, but right now, ABC 26 News anchor Kurt Sprang takes a tasty look at another way fans are feeding their black and gold fever.
Many Saints fans are consumed with their team spirit, and here at Rock and Saki they can consume and fill their desire for the black and gold.
This is a Sean Pay tuna sashimi.
Chef Dirk Danton starts with thinly sliced yellowfin tuna rubbed with minced garlic and covered briefly with hot oil.
This just sears the top of it. Just like so. Drain it a little bit.
At Rock and Saki, they have dozens of Saints-themed dishes with great names, too, like the Marquise Rollston, Rock'em Shockey Roll, and the Rob'em Meacham.
Definitely after the game, win or lose, people come in and, yeah, we'll put 2 or 3 on the special boards, and yeah, they're great sellers.
Black and Gold's success this year is inspiring all kinds of displays of team spirit. At Sucre on Magazine Street, fans can enjoy a sweet victory with a Saints cake helmet or some killer cupcakes that almost look too good to eat. They're chocolate cake with salted caramel buttercream filling and frosting. and every fresh batch is gone before you can say Super Bowl.
Less than a day. We usually get them in, and people are walking in the door, taking a dozen, 2 dozen.
Walking in, 2 more burgers of the month.
At Phil's Grill in Metairie, the line cooks are all about the Saints linemen. The Burger of the Month is helping offensive tackle Zach Streif raise money for charity. The burger is a combo of andouille and Angus, dressed with a bourbon glaze on French bread. Also, for $1, you can vote on the best black and gold linemen of all time, also for charity.
The high-powered offense gets all the love and the new defense, and it doesn't happen without the guys in the trenches. So we wanted to focus on those guys, give the linemen some love.
All right, Saints fans, now the best part, warming your heart while you fill your stomach. Back to you guys.
Looks great, and the money from the burger fundraiser at Phil's will go to Zach Streif's Dream Big Foundation and will benefit Casa of New Orleans.
And it seems the Saints have taken over the town. Even carnival season has gone to the boys in black and gold.
That's right. Bakeries all across the metro area are whipping up fleur-de-lis king cakes to honor the Saints' success. So I headed to Marguerite's Bakery in Slidell to learn the secret behind the design.
We're going to do the fleur-de-lis king cake.
To properly tell the story of the king cake, we would need 6 hours. That's the time it takes to make just one cake start to finish.
Every king cake.
So for time's sake, we rolled up our sleeves with the dough already done.
Here and the larger piece here.
We just need to brush off the flour so it doesn't dry out the cake.
You want to do larger piece first.
Okay.
There you go. Here's your rolling pin. Okay, and then to roll the king cake, since it's already been mostly rolled for you, you're just taking it and kind of making it kind of squared oblong.
Next, egg wash.
And what this does, this is like a gluing agent that takes and holds your cinnamon and sugar.
Looks easy enough, but there are some tricks to this trade.
Some cinnamon all around, except leave the edges open.
Ooh.
A little trick, let me show you.
Okay.
You're going to do it this way.
Ah.
Okay, so this way you're more in control in which way you're going.
So there's an art to this.
We fold the cinnamon and sugar inside and then move on to the next piece. Well, sort of.
I don't have the technique down yet.
I'm just going to cut that in half. That's great. You're doing good.
Now for the hard part.
Okay, now we're going to form it.
First, you form the main part of the fleur-de-lis.
Then you take your other ones, one of the other sides.
Okay.
And you're going to make it kind of like a C.
Same goes for the other side. And hey, this is starting to look like a king cake designed to cheer on the black and gold.
Basically, this is our finished product.
Looks great.
Turn around. Look at it.
Not too bad for a first-time pastry chef. Just don't ask me to make the dough.
What is the secret? To me, the secret, I've been doing it for a long time, the secret is how you mix it. You know, you can mix it, you can overmix it, you can undermix it, you can put too much water. There is, it has to do with the weather.
And the finished product is all Saints.
Oh, a tailgate, a Saints party, every Sunday. Everybody gathers together to watch Saints games, it's awesome. It's nothing like a king cake, a New Orleans king cake.
Made by yours truly, really, Marguerite.
I was wondering, how long did you spend rolling out that
I cannot
dough?
get the rolling technique down, but those king cakes were absolutely fabulous, and it's fun to get them in the shape of a fleur-de-lis to celebrate the Saints. And Marguerite said that she would put footballs in them instead of the baby, so to get you more in the spirit.
And I think it's best to leave it to Marguerite.
Yes, it is.
After watching that story, that's why I will be buying my king cakes. All right, thanks,
Yes.
Jocelyn. One Saints superfan has a burning desire to cheer on the boys in black and gold to win against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, ABC 26 News reporter Glenn Boyd shows us how one Elvis impersonator wants everyone to swivel their hips to a big playoff win.
You have all sorts of fans, especially now with the Saints on this little losing streak. You have your bandwagon fans, you have your diehards, and you have your super fans. In fact, the super fans, they have their own calendar. I'm going to introduce you to a super fan right now. In fact, this is his ride.
I'm January. That's that way when we in the playoff games, you see. And then they titled me the King of Super Fans, man.
Don't know if the real Elvis was a Saints fan. This Elvis impersonator certainly is.
Come on, everybody, let's rock and roll. Let's cheer our Saints to the Super Bowl. Let's watch the Saints go marching in. Come on down, let's watch them win.
His name is Randy Bonneville. Every Sunday in the Dome, he's Elvis, and fans love him.
I roam the Dome is what I do. I don't like to sit still, so I roam around. And I go maybe 5-10 feet, take pictures. 5 or 10 feet, take pictures, you know, so it's fantastic, man. I really like it.
He's so into the Saints, he painted this 1973 442 Oldsmobile black and gold.
I got my hands on it back in 2000, and by 2002, it was black and gold, baby, all the way, you know. So I've been doing it a lot of years, you know.
Inside, Saints memorabilia, autographed footballs in the back seat, and other keepsakes.
1, 2, 3. Oh, awesome.
Even during this interview, a number of women in particular walked up wanting a picture of Randy and his car. Surprisingly, they didn't ask him to sing, because he would have.
Saints rock, we're the toughest team, Saints roll. You'll see what I mean, Saints rock. The fans will do that thing, Saints roll. Cheering with the king. Let's rock and roll with the Saints to the Super Bowl.
This 442 is nearly 40 years old, and Randy says he'll like to take it to Miami. And judging the way this engine looks, it might just make it.
All right, thanks. That was Glenn Boyd reporting. Of course, like we said, there are no fans like Saints fans. And you can catch more of Elvis live with Glenn Boyd tomorrow during our Mission Miami pregame 1-hour special from 2:30 to 3:30. Also, if you'd like to listen to the Elvis Saints rock song, it can be downloaded on iTunes, Amazon, and Napster for just $1.
Well, Saints fever, if it isn't obvious by now, is hitting the Crescent City like never before.
And even people who aren't necessarily Saints fans are rooting for the team, and there's a psychology behind that. ABC 26 News reporter Layla Morcos explains.
Well, it's not just locals that are feeling all this Saints love.
To suddenly at the beginning of the season hear that they're undefeated, they're continuing, they're going all the way with it. It was just something that you had to keep in the back of your mind.
Wendy Beaster isn't even from New Orleans, but Saints fever is infectious.
So much support, so many people so excited. It's just something that everybody wants to be part of.
And that's how other out-of-towners we spoke to feel.
From Florida, but I still love the Saints more than Tampa Bay.
For locals like Scott Clements, his love of the Saints has never been bigger. For him, it's permanent now.
It was very exciting. It was, something new.
We love a party here in New Orleans anyway, but we're just so proud of the Saints.
Clinical psychologist Amy Dixon says Saints fan passion is more intense than ever before. One reason, people getting swept up in the excitement.
I cannot tell you the number of people that tailgated downtown who I've never heard tailgating at a football game before.
Another reason, fans connect with the Saints team like never before.
As a team, I think we're just very impressed with the team. They're passionate, they're excited, they're hard workers, they're good at what they do, they're cohesive, they attribute their success to the entire team instead of an individual. These are good things to get behind. It makes people feel good to support a team like this.
But even more so, the Saints represent New Orleanians to the rest of the world.
Even more since Katrina, it's a way of showing the world, see how tough we are, see how well that we can work hard and come back, and it's just representative, it's symbolic of our city.
This passion is crossing state lines.
I like the passion, I do.
And Drew Brees should have gotten MVP. Drew Brees was cheated.
So most of the people we spoke to have this adoration for the Saints. It'll be interesting to see what happens throughout the playoffs. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Layla. Turning to weather now, lots of you are preparing for a big day of tailgating. So will you need sunscreen or umbrellas on Saturday?
Well, the man with the answer to that question, Chief Meteorologist Bruce Katz, who's here to explain our big game day forecast. Bruce?
That's right. Hey there, girls. Well, unfortunately, you're going to be second lining with the umbrella, and the umbrella is going to have a second use to dodge some raindrops. Unfortunately, it looks like the rain chances will be heading in. In fact, of course, as we fly into the CBD, heading into the Superdome, of course, people will be piling into the Dome. It is going to be a major sellout with probably standing room only. Here's a look at your forecast for the morning. Getting up and at it at 9 o'clock, 49 degrees as you're tailgating by noon, 53 with rain, and then 3 o'clock at 59 as well. So again, we are expecting a good chance of rain all the way through the day. So it looks like you will need the umbrellas. And if you are going to be out and about, maybe not even around the Superdome, but maybe heading to parties, plan accordingly, because it looks like it's going to be a wet one out there, as we do see that rain chance on the way up. It looks like all the way through the day. So whatever tailgating you got going, well, you may want to move it indoors or maybe set up the big tents as people do. It looks like, again, we are going to see a cool, damp kind of and raw day. But you know what, guys? It doesn't matter. People around here are still going to go crazy for that game. And again, thank goodness we have a dome to play in, because we're not going to play in the mess that LSU played in with their big...
exactly.
Oh, that was a mess.
Oh, it was a mud bowl.
It was a mud bowl. So again, inside the dome, okay. Outside the dome, a little bit messy.
All right. Well, thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. More Mission Miami coming up.
You're watching an ABC 26 Sports Special, Mission Miami.
Well, it sounds good.
This is an ABC 26 Sports Special, Mission Miami.
And welcome back to Mission Miami. We're going to talk a little tailgating food now. Chef Nino with Rouse's is here to cook up something really delicious and healthy at the same time.
And it's something that you can do at your own tailgate, so really pay attention.
Yes, we're gonna get it started. We're gonna do a marinated grilled flank steak with some chicken breast. Our ingredients start very simple but very profound. There's about 15 ingredients. You can go to rouses.com and check out this recipe. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna start with a little tequila. Is that okay, lady?
Well, that's one way to get the party started.
Folks, how do you like my backdrop right here, folks? All right, here we go. We're gonna put about a half a cup of tequila.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put these ingredients right before
Can we do anything to help, or we're just gonna observe?
You can have some if you like.
No.
Yeah. We're gonna put about another half a cup of triple sec.
Okay.
There we go. See, we building this marinade. We put all the liquid first, all right? And then we're just gonna let our flank steak and chicken breast marinate overnight, and then we're gonna grill them.
Okay.
All right. Then we're gonna put about another quarter cup of soy sauce.
What kind of flavor does this marinade have?
Almost like a Latin, Mexican. Oh, it's nice.
What's the name? Does it have a name?
It's just a marinated flank steak, more of a Latin style.
Latin style.
You're gonna have to give it a name, like the Chef Nino marinade.
What's your name?
Jocelyn.
This is called Jocelyn marinade.
And there you have it.
We're gonna put
it should be the Houdat marinade.
The Houdat marinade.
There you
right.
go.
South of the border,
that
Houdat.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
What is this?
A little bit of olive oil. First
okay.
cold pressed olive oil.
Okay.
We put about 2 or 3 tablespoons. We're using a little bit of kosher salt. We never use table salt. We're using either kosher or sea salt. Okay. We're going to put the juice of a fresh squeezed orange. Notice this does not come from a jar. We want to use fresh squeeze. So look at, can y'all smell this already?
I can really smell it.
The triple sec, the tequila, the orange.
Yes.
There we go.
It's nice.
We got a little bit of lime.
Some lime.
This lime has no screw cap. Okay. All right. Look at that. Fresh squeeze.
Oh, wow.
All right. Now we're going to put in our jalapenos. And what we did with the jalapenos, folks, we cut them in half. We took the seeds of the membrane out, and that's where the heat is. So it's going to be more of a flavor instead of...
Less kick, more flavor.
Exactly.
All right.
Really, it's going to be less kick and more flavor, folks. All right. We're going to put a little bit of white onion. Okay. I'm putting about a half a cup of white onion. And our fresh cut cilantro. You don't want to get cilantro mixed up with parsley. You want cilantro to give that good Latin flavor. And if cilantro is not your game, you can use parsley, Italian parsley.
Okay.
You either love cilantro or hate it.
Okay. All right, you have several spices you're going to add in here?
Yes. We're going to put a little bit of cayenne. Now be careful with this stuff right here.
Oh, that can be dangerous if you overdo that. You can't undo overdoing it.
Correct, yes. Quarter teaspoon of cayenne. We're going to put about another quarter teaspoon of cumin.
That smells good.
Can you smell it already?
Yeah.
About another half a teaspoon of chili. Okay. All right, now we're going to whisk this all together.
Okay, this is going to cover the meat overnight.
Yes.
Okay, once it's marinated, then what are we going to do with it?
We're going to put it on a hot grill, which we can't bring a grill in here.
Right.
I grilled it a little bit earlier at an undisclosed location in the hidden bunker.
Okay.
And then we have it already cooked. But
Can you bring it out for us?
Oh, yeah, we are. Yes, ma'am. And I just want to show the audience what it looks like in the marinade. And
God, the marinade smells so good.
Oh, the triple sec, the tequila, the lime, the orange juice is really a wonderful marinade there. And really, you want to just put some saran wrap over this and let it marinate overnight.
So, folks, you need to do this today if you're planning to serve this tomorrow for the game.
Yeah, and really, folks, don't let the amount of the ingredients discourage you from cooking this. This really, maybe 10 minutes of preparation overnight, and it really sears quickly on the grill.
Oh, it seemed really simple. And
It
if you
is.
didn't catch everything, we'll put the recipe for you online at abc26.com. That way we can make it easy. You can just log on and get the recipe.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, after this is marinated, let me show you what it looks
All
like
right, let's
after
see
we
it.
seared it on a hot grill. All right, let me get this out the way here. All right,
I'm ready to
excuse
see
me.
the finished product.
I'm ready to taste the finished
So,
product.
and do you serve it as a fajita? I kind of see we've got some wraps here.
Yes, yes. I got, what I love is shopping at my Rouse's is this. I can choose to be heart healthy at my Rouse's, that's right. And look at these wonderful, the garden spinach herb wraps right here.
This is my favorite.
This is sun-dried tomato and basil. Always
so
a
good.
fresh variety there. And they have this pre-made guacamole right here, ready to go. You don't have to make your own. And a really pre-made sauces, all kind of different healthy varieties, even organics if you choose that. But let me show you what it looks like
All
right
right,
now.
let's see it.
That's what we're all waiting
This
to
is
see.
great that you can have some great game day food without blowing your diet. I mean, this is wonderful that it's actually healthy game day food.
Yes, indeed. Are y'all ready for the unveiling, the
Oh
unmasking?
my goodness, that looks
Yeah.
good.
Wow.
Here we go. Can y'all smell what I'm smelling here? Folks, look
Oh,
at
I
this
can
right
even
here.
smell the smokiness of the meat from the grill. It smells great.
After that meat starts cooking and heating up, it really starts dripping on that fire and it starts to make a wonderful smoke. That's the value of learning a really good marinade. This is a really versatile marinade and you can do so much with it.
All right, and that is Chef Nino's Who Dat Marinade. And we're going to put the recipe on our website if you'd like to try this. And thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you for
healthy
allowing us to
and
come.
delicious.
We appreciate it. You'll be at my next tailgate for sure.
All right, thank y'all so much.
More Mission Miami after this.
You're watching an EBC 26 sports special. Mission Miami is an EBC 26 sports special. Mission Miami.
And welcome back to Mission Miami.
Sports Director Ed Daniels joins us now with a look at what shape the Saints are in as they get ready to face the Cardinals.
Well, I think you always find out in the playoffs because if you look at last week, we found out that the New York Jets are pretty good. We found out that the New England Patriots all of a sudden look like an old team. So maybe we find out on Saturday that the Saints are pretty good. We'll see how it shakes out. Last January, the Saints hired new defensive coordinator Greg Williams. 1 year later, we see how much that hire has paid off. The Saints have produced 39 turnovers. But in the NFL, memories are short. How much better is the Saints defense? Real judgment begins Saturday afternoon.
There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league that aren't well coached. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league that aren't playing very well right now.
That certainly wouldn't apply to Warner or Saints quarterback Drew Brees. For the second straight season, Brees matched his touchdown pass total with 34, and he threw 6 less interceptions. Williams said Brees is a big reason why he chose New Orleans over what he said were 9 job offers last winter.
It's much easier in my job knowing that there's a guy that can bail me out too, and Drew Brees can bail me out if something's going wrong.
Many, including the odds makers, expect a high-scoring playoff game in the Dome. It is Greg Williams' job to make sure most of that scoring is done by the home team. Greg Williams was with Tennessee when they lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. So here are my keys to the game. Who gets heat on Kurt Warner other than Will Smith? Smith, who leads the Saints with 13 sacks, will likely draw, if not a double team, a chip from a running back or tight end. So what other Saints steps up to get some heat on Kurt Warner? And 2, does the Saints offense awake from its late season slump? From October 18th against the Giants through December 6th at Washington, the Saints scored 30 points or more in 7 of 8 games. Since, the Saints have scored 26, 17, 17, and 10 points. Well, this has been a season of nevers for the Saints, with some nevers still to reach. Never won 13 games in a season until now. Never were the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs until now. Never appeared in a Super Bowl, maybe in 9 days we can say until now. And until now, the Saints have never been the favorites. The Saints have never been the lead dog until now. And with that top seed comes some responsibility and some pressure. The Saints have handled the big stage well this season. They ripped the Giants in October when both clubs were undefeated. 6 weeks later on a Monday night, the Saints routed New England. And the party continues, only if the Saints are comfortable playing the status of lead dog. And it's probably a cool thing in the NFL playoffs, but this is the way it is. The Saints had a great season. They won 13 games. But if they lose Saturday, I think a lot of people will feel that it was all for naught. Now, is that a fair analysis? Perhaps not. But when you've reached this level and you've won all those games, then people expect you to be able to do it in the postseason.
That's just the way it is.
The way it is.
All right,
And
thanks,
we
Ed.
hope they can.
We'll be right back.
You're watching an EBC 26 Sports Special, Mission Miami.
Well, before we go, we'd like to thank Rouse's for coming in and making that great marinade, and they brought us a fabulous king cake
It
here.
smells so good. And Chef Nino with his marinated flank steak and chicken, perfect for tailgating.
Well, we'll leave you tonight with the sights and sounds of the Saints' magical season, 13-3. Thanks for watching.
Hey, and don't forget to check out our live 1-hour special tomorrow from 2:30 to 3:30. We'll see you then.
Now it's Saints time.
Coming up on Saints Game.
How many fans from New Iberia are going to make the trip down to the Superdome?
Oh, it's a lot of them, at least maybe like 25 to 30.
Can the Saints defense step up? One thing we do know is all but one Saints defender is healthy enough to step on the field.
I'm a better coach when top guys are playing.
For one Saint, helping the Saints win a championship would cement a unique Louisiana legacy.
We've had quite a run of significant plays and significant games here. I mean, for the quiet old Devery Henderson, he's had some big-time games.
Yeah, this is all a blessing.
The time is now, Hootats.
The place is Saints Game Plan.
From Fox 8, the home of the Saints. This is the Super Chevy Dealers Saints Game Plan with John Henry Smith and Sean Fazan. Brought to you by your Super Chevy Dealers.
Welcome to the party. This is Saints Game Plan. I'm John Henry Smith, joined by Sean Fazan. And Sean, by this time tomorrow, we will know whether or not the Saints are headed to their second all-time NFC Championship game.
I know the bye week seemed like an eternity, but now we know the Cardinals will face the Saints 3:30 tomorrow at the Superdome. The Cardinals advanced thanks to an epic performance over Green Bay.
Obviously an entertaining game to watch.
So let's meet these Cardinals. They finished 10-6 in the regular season. They're at 11-6 now with Sunday's wild win against Green Bay. They won the NFC East this year, and don't forget, they came with just minutes away from winning last year's Super Bowl. You don't have to remind Coach Payton of how dangerous these Cardinals are.
You look at last year's run that they had, they went through a stretch, and when you look at what Ken was able to do and that team, what was most important, stuck together and really, got into the postseason and played good football.
Of course, you cannot mention the Cardinals without mentioning their quarterback, Kurt Warner, a guy, Sean, who always seems to play big on the biggest stages.
And he stayed true to form Sunday. Warner threw more touchdowns, 5, than incompletions, 4.
Unbelievable.
Against the foursome makes the Cardinals' offensive attack difficult to shut down.
What was really impressive is seeing a guy like Doucette come in with the injury to Bolden and play the way he did. And so they're deep at that position group. They do a good job of deploying them. Certainly there's a confidence level in their quarterback.
Well, you heard Coach Payton talk about him. Early Doucette had a breakout game last week. And his performance, quite frankly, shouldn't be surprising to Southeast Louisianans.
You're absolutely right. Doucette was a key component in the Tigers' 2007 national championship run. Rob Ennis went one-on-one with the Louisiana native.
Tight, let's go.
Early, your last game in the Superdome was a 2007 BCS championship. You left as a champion. You're going back as a Cardinal. What's your reaction going back to the Superdome in New Orleans?
Man, hopefully I can have a repeat performance and, come out with a victory just like we did in 2007.
Talk about your season so far. You only had 17 catches in the regular season. You had 6 last week against the Packers, 2 huge touchdowns. How good did that?
Back a little bit, but to finally get an opportunity in the playoff game to score 2 touchdowns is amazing, and I'm just excited and I'm thankful at the same time.
You're in your 2nd year in the NFL. You said you've learned a lot. What is the biggest thing you've learned so far in the NFL?
Just to try to be consistent, and do the little things that allow you to, perform at a high level, take care of your body, get the weights, the film study, catch passes after practice, and just be an all-around professional on and off the field. And I think consistency is the key to longevity in this league. So if you can be consistent throughout your career, I think it'll have you playing up for a long time.
And I guess it certainly helps when you learn from guys like Larry Fitzgerald and then your quarterback, Kurt Warner.
Yeah, definitely. Having guys like that, Fitz, Anquan, Kurt, the whole team, everybody, it's a lot of veterans on this team, and they've been through a lot. So just seeing how they take that approach day in and day out, as a young player, you kind of want to, follow their lead and become that same type of person.
How many fans from New Iberia are going to make the trip down to the Superdome?
Oh, it's a lot of them, at least maybe like 25 to 30. So I got to get a lot of tickets. I might be playing for free this weekend. So, but it's all for the good. I'm excited to see a lot of my family and friends and have them come to the game and see me play.
Early, thanks for your time.
All right, no problem.
He'll be playing for free. Great line. Warner and the Cardinals, of course, didn't have much time to celebrate their big win over the Packers.
That's basically because they had to turn right around and start game planning the Saints. The Cardinals played the late game Sunday and played the early game Saturday, meaning they're on a short week. But Coach Payton isn't calling that an advantage for his team.
Players understand they're going to have the whole offseason to rest. So I think, at this point, versus teams that rested, had success.
Now, the short week may or may not work in the Saints' favor.
But they could use all the help they can get, at least lately. The Saints have lost 3 straight heading into the playoffs and really haven't played well the last 5 weeks. But despite all that, the boys in black and gold say they're confident they can regain their early season success.
Really, everyone starts off 0-0 right here. And so, I think today's work was outstanding, and I think our players will be ready.
3 out of 4 years we've had the #1 offense in the league, and that's a body of work. That's not just, a stretch of games here, a stretch of games there. That is a body of work. So we know how to play at a high level offensively. Defensively, we did some things this year that were unbelievable as far as taking the ball away, making huge plays.
Now, one reason the Saints' confidence is high is, quite frankly, John, they're healthy.
That's right, and nowhere is that more apparent than on the defensive side of the football. The Saints will have 10 out of their 11 opening day defensive starters ready for this game. The lone exception, of course, is Charles Grant. Now, the last time this unit was this together, you have to go way back to week 6. And during those first 6 weeks, the Saints created 15 turnovers, never lost a game, and for that matter, never even trailed in a game.
I'm a better coach when some of those top guys are playing, but let's take what some people see to be a negative into a positive. Last year or years past here, when those type of things happened, they weren't able to get over the hump. They weren't able to do whatever it took, to find a way to make a play at the end, find a way to make a play here or there, and still win ball games. We were able to win 13, playing a tremendous amount of people.
Well, no matter the day or time, one thing always seems to be constant in the playoffs.
And that would be the I word, Sean, intensity. It's true. Everything gets magnified even more in the postseason, partly because everyone is watching and partly because it's do or die, win or go home. Drew Brees had an interesting take on the playoff intensity.
It's interesting because as a quarterback, instead of getting sped up, everything for you want to just slow down, And so I find that just the more prepared you are, and the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, that's when things really slow down.
Well, Drew may want to slow things down, but his team has slowed down the last 3 weeks after an incredibly fast start to start the season.
Oh, that's right, Sean. And the team's 3-game losing slide heading into the playoffs have some wondering if the Saints have what it takes to make a Super Bowl run. The players, though, don't have any doubt about that.
That's something we don't harp on it. We don't honestly, when I hear about it or see it,
You shocked by it at all?
no. I mean, that's their job. That's their job to do what we do. We didn't end the season the way that we wanted to, and so it makes sense for a lot of people to write us off. But we're going to keep grinding. I say the same thing every week. We're going to keep grinding and grinding, and go out there and we're going to play together on all 3 phases and just see what the outcome is.
Still to come on Saints game plan.
Well, it's playoff time. I mean, we've been through a whole season, so, we know what we have on this team.
Come Saturday, Jari Evans says this team will be ready. We go one-on-one with the Saints Pro Bowler next. Plus,
we'll introduce Aaron, this week's Saintsation, and later.
Those opportunities were given to me, and it just happened for me.
Saints wide receiver Devery Henderson talks about some key moments in his college and professional life. Saints game plan is back in 2 minutes.
Chevy Dealers Saints game plan.
I'm Erin. I'm 23 years old from Houma, Louisiana. This is my 2nd year on the team. I attended Nicholls State University and graduated from Omega Institute of Cosmetology, and I currently work as a hair
season. He's quick to point out the play of his offensive line.
Hey, and Sean, that offensive line could potentially put 4 players in the Pro Bowl, including Jari Evans. I went one-on-one with Evans to get his thoughts on tomorrow's big game.
I was going to say that we're here with Saints guard Jari Evans, but you can't say that anymore without saying Saints Pro Bowl guard Jari Evans. And I just remember the day after, you were just so excited. Has it worn off on you? Are you still excited?
Yeah, a little bit. It's worn off. We got other things in hand right now going into this game against the Cardinals, so that's what we're looking forward to, and that's what I'm focusing on.
Don't let him play it cool, folks. Look at that smile. Look at him smile when I talk about making the Pro Bowl. Seriously. Yeah. So now you're coming up, of course, against the Cardinals this weekend. Now, were you watching the game last week with a pen and paper in hand? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, I was watching the game very closely. Yeah, their defense is really an under defense. They do have a shade nose, and they do play a 3 on one side, even though they only have 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers in the game. So it's going to be a little different, but not much.
Shade, nose, and 3 down side. Now break that down for those non-football fans out there.
I mean, they got a nose, shade in the center, and they also have a 3 technique, shading the guard as well. So, but they only have 3 down linemen with the backer rolled up on the edge to make it, 4 down surface.
Make no mistake, I love hearing the lingo. Right. All right, it's all good. But now, there was reports out last week, not reports, but there were opinion columns written out there that some people thought that, wow, maybe Sean Payton should have practiced the team more instead of letting them sit out and rest up. To those people, what do you say?
I mean, it's playoff time. I mean, we've been through a whole season, so we know what we have on this team and what we have in this locker room. We were 100% behind the decision that Coach Payton made, and we feel as though that we're going to be well prepared, ready for this game on Saturday, and we're going to go out there and give it our best and go out there and get a win.
You been able to sleep, or are the thoughts of making it to the Super Bowl keeping you up at night?
No, not at all. Right now, it's a one-game series, one game at a time, one play at a time, and that's how we're approaching it.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Still to come on Saints game plan.
I know one thing, New Orleans will never be the same.
Why Louisiana native Devery Henderson would love nothing more than to win a Super Bowl for his home state. We go one-on-one with number 19 next.
10th-15th, the Super Chevy Dealers Saints Game Plan.
Welcome back to Saints Game Plan. Now, if you've ever met Saints wide receiver Devery Henderson, you know he's something of a quiet fella.
True, but while he's soft-spoken off the field, on the field, he lets his play do the talking. This year, he's putting up career numbers. But the Louisiana native wants just one thing for his home state. Yeah, I was thinking, you're from Louisiana. Okay, you were part of the 2003 national championship team at LSU. 2002, you had one of the greatest plays in LSU history with the Bluegrass Miracle. Okay, the reopening of the Superdome, you scored in the Superdome special, so you obviously had a role in that, one of the biggest games in Saints history, part of the 2016. I mean, you've had quite a run of significant plays and significant games here. I mean, for the quiet old Devery Henderson, he's had some big-time games.
Right. It's just all a blessing, man, and just those opportunities were given to me, and you know, it just happened for me. And the main thing is, hopefully, you know, I can make another big play that, you know, we remembered, or, you know, be part of something special again. So hopefully, you know, we just get everything together, man, and do what we're supposed to do, play ball like we know we can, and come out with a victory.
Not bad for a converted running back, though, right? I mean, you were once a running back.
Right. The funny thing is, a lot of guys don't know and never thought that I played running back in college for 2 years, and you know, that's the thing. And I came to the league fresh as a wide receiver. You know, had good coaching at LSU, but you know, 2 years you really, I mean, converted from playing running back all your life, you really don't pick up on everything. You know, I was just out there pretty much making plays and still learning. And you know, got in the NFL, and you know, got some good coaching and over the years. And CJ came, and you know, he's a great guy, great work with me, worked me hard, you know, and
I've heard
it all worked out for me.
You know, you being one of the handful of guys on this team that represents from Louisiana. I mean, how much would it mean to you to win a Super Bowl in your home state and for the people in New Orleans and the entire, you know, Louisiana state, Louisiana?
It would. You know, I grew up watching this franchise, this organization, and I always wanted to see them, you know, do well. And you know, it's been ups and downs, you know, and for me to come in and being from the state and played college in the state and still here, and being part of this organization, you know, it's great guys, great all-around people here. I just want the best, you know, no matter what, you know, whether here, you know, if it's years from now and, you know, I'm you know, moved on or anything else, I still would love to see this organization do good. More now because I'm here, but for the main part, hopefully we can get it done, and you know, it would mean a lot to me being from here, and I know it would mean a lot to the fans and to the state of Louisiana. You know, I know one thing: New Orleans will never be the same.
You can then watch the game at 3:30 right here on Fox 8.
And for a complete look back at Saturday's game and hopefully a look forward to the NFC Championship game, join us Sunday night for the final play.
Be sure to stay up to date with the latest Saints news on our website, Fox 8.
January 21st, 2007, Soldier Field. The black and gold battled the Bears for the NFC Championship crown. The season ended here in the snow. 3 years later, the Saints are in the ultimate fight again. Hey everyone, we've got less than 24 hours until the Saints playoff opener against the Arizona Cardinals. We've got a special guest with us to give us some expert insight into the game. Former Saints player, Mr. Michael Lewis. Thanks for being with us, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, so it is the eve of the big game. What are players doing right now? What is going on through their minds?
I think they're focusing on what they have to do as far as the game plan goes and things like that, trying to get plays and stuff in their mind. So when it's time to step out on the field, I think everything will just run naturally and they don't have to worry about thinking about anything.
Well, we cannot even imagine what that must be like for the players. All right, Saints fans, we've got a lot ahead for you on this special playoff edition of the Sean Payton Show. Mike's going to join us again later in the show to give us some insider info on the big game. But right now, we're taking you to the Saints facility, where the team's been hard at work prepping for the showdown against the Cardinals.
Really, everyone starts off 0-0. You know, the turnover statistics in the past weekend, and not all 3-4 defense. We've got a few different combinations. They are used to playing first and second down.
It's always a chess match because all the teams in the playoffs are good teams.
The defense is going to be
every snap third down.
Defense, the same defense that started the year, or the one that ended when you all were kind of giving up a lot of yards.
Sharp's still here, Will's still here, Jabari's still here, Remy's here, Sad's here, Bobby's still here, Malcolm's still here, Harp's still here, Shanley's still here, Porter's still here, I'm here, Jeter's still here, Velma's still here, Greg's still coaching. A lot of people are still here.
No matter if we're playing a quarterback that hasn't turned the ball over, we feel like what we do is take the ball away.
Getting turnovers is what our defense has done very well. And that's not something we're just going to, just lay down and not do anymore.
We got to try to affect them up front, try to hit them, try to get sacks on them.
This isn't the first time, and they've been doubted before in a number of big spots this year already.
I saw early on that they kept on wanting to be more. And it's not only Sharper and Velma.
We were all brought here for games like this, and we expect all of our starters, players, big-time players, whatever you want to call them, to step up and have their best game.
But, we're going to keep grinding.
It's those games you go in with and you just say, hey, we got to take advantage of every opportunity we get. I mean, I definitely feel like this is one of those games.
No, I can't wait till Saturday.
Obviously, we didn't come this far to go home.
We just got to play Saints football.
Thanks, Coach.
With the NFL's top championship matchup being just weeks away, one thing we know is certain, Saints players will be in Miami. The question remains whether it will be for the Pro Bowl or the Super Bowl. This year, 5 Saints were voted to the Pro Bowl squad, and Billy Miller caught up with them.
Hi guys, it's me, Billy Miller. I'm back. This week, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I've been gone for a while. I apologize about that. I've missed you guys. Hopefully you've missed me. So this week, we're gonna sit down with 5 special players. We have 5 players chosen to the Pro Bowl this year. It's awesome. So we're gonna talk to them whether it's their first time or they're old vet at it and they're kind of used to it. Let's check it out. All right, we're actually headed into our main locker room. So I gotta punch in my code. Oh, and it worked. I'm joined with Jari Evans. He's one of the 5 Pro Bowlers we had this year. I'll be selected to the Pro Bowl. Congratulations, bro.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
This is your first one, right?
Yeah, very first one.
How's that feel, man, when you get that call, knowing that your peers, fans, reporters, everybody thinks that you're worthy of being one of, 3 guards that go?
It's been a goal of mine, since I came into the league. And just like every other player, you want to be the best at your position. You want to be the best player that you can be. So I was excited, and my family was excited for me. Now it's time to get the Super Bowl.
Well, man, that's it, man. I appreciate you.
Man.
Thanks for talking to me. Congratulations again,
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, now I'm here with number 9. You guys might know him, might recognize him, Drew Brees. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Now, this is your, how many Pro Bowls is this for you? 4 Pro Bowls. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Can't think anybody deserves more than you. Now, what I think is interesting is that since you've been a Saint, you're going to the Pro Bowl now, but you've never had a skill position player go to the Pro Bowl.
I think that we spread the ball around so much that maybe if you just looked at each person's stats individually, they might not match up to, just the stat sheet.
Yeah.
But I think as a unit, we got the best unit, without a doubt, in the league.
What has been the most ridiculous question you've been asked this year?
We come off one performance in which we scored less than 20 points in like 25 consecutive games. And I get the question, has the league found out how to stop the Saints? That's a stupid right?
Man, congratulations again, bro. I appreciate the time. Thanks a lot. I'm now joined with Darren Sharp, safety for the Saints, man. Congratulations.
Thanks,
another
brother.
Pro Bowl.
All right.
Another Pro Bowl. How many is this for you?
I lost count.
That's the answer I'm looking for. Yes.
A couple.
Before we even start, I was going to do a whole segment on this shirt.
Right.
Can you explain to me a little bit about this shirt?
Well, we call this a who dat.
Okay.
Who that?
Mm-hmm.
Doing a sharper shake.
How long you been doing that?
I would say it's about 10 years now.
The Pro Bowl is a special thing because not only do you get voted on by your peers, but it's the fans, you know, it's reporters, it's everybody. How does that feel when you get that nod?
You know, it feels good. You always appreciate being recognized by your peers. You know, those are the people that watch your tape. They watch the games. They're not just watching game day tape and see the big plays you make, but they watch you consistently 60 plays or 70 plays throughout the game. And that's the thing I think is the most respectful thing about being voted a Pro Bowler.
Darren, I appreciate you, baby. Good looking out. Thank you.
Right.
Stench. Billy Miller. How you doing today?
How in the world are